Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Steve's Tech Vlog. Today I'm going to do an unboxing and an initial review of the Xiaomi MiSphere camera. This is a 360 panorama camera and I basically just got it in the mail a few days ago. So this is the box that it came in. You can see that's how the camera looks. It's a full black in color. It says that this is a 360 camera. It takes 24 megapixel photos. It's IP67 water and dust resistant. It's got electronic image stabilization, and basically this is just some information about the camera. Alright, so let's basically unbox this. Okay. Alright, so the camera itself, it's a rectangular sandwich. It's got two fisheye lenses, one on each side. There's a bit of a heft to it. It's built out of, I think, aluminium. It's definitely a metal construction, or at least the borders are metal. There are three buttons on the top. This is the power button. Then there is a Wi-Fi button and the shutter button. Two microphones on top. There is a sealed flap that conceals the micro USB port for charging and image transfer. There is a micro SD slot. At the bottom there is a 1/4 inch thread, and there are two pin connectors basically for connecting the MiSphere selfie stick. And this selfie stick does not need a battery because it actually uses a physical contact to basically trigger the shutter. So I'm going to just move this aside for now. The camera itself does not actually have a memory inside, or writable memory, except for the firmware. So you do need a micro SD card to actually take photos. But before that, let's see what else is in the box. Let me just put this aside for now. Alright, so let's see if I can get this thing out. There's actually a built-in or a provided tripod stand, a mini tripod stand, which I can screw to the bottom, and this thing opens up quite nicely, and you can see that it stands up quite stable as well if I screw it up tightly. Alright, so you know what, I'll just leave this stand on. Now what else is in the box? I'm just going to move this aside, in the box also there should be, or there is a carrying case. So there is a micro USB cable, manual, and a rubbery carrying case which fits the camera. Okay, so let's basically start the camera. Just move this all aside. Now one of the recommended SD cards to actually use, which I'm using here, I don't know if you can actually see this, if I can get it to focus, is the SanDisk Extreme Pro. This actually has a 100 megabyte per second read, as well as just over 95 megabytes of write speed, megabytes per second write speed. You'll need the speed for 4K video recording. So let me just put the micro SD card in. Let's see if I got it in the right direction. Or maybe it's this way. Alright, so if it clicks, then it's the right direction. Alright, so that's in. Okay, I'm just going to remove the plastic covers like this, and we basically turn on the camera by pressing the power button. So as the camera starts up, you can see the LED turn on. Now it's actually in photo mode. So if I hit the power button once, a short click, changes to video mode, changes back to photo mode. Alright, the second button is to turn on Wi-Fi. That's to connect to the app on the phone, and that's the shutter button to take a photo. Alright, so let me just turn this thing off. I just want to share with you this particular site, which is hosted and managed by the developers of the MiSphere camera. So the address is easy-team.com/xiaomi.html. I'll post the link in the description as well. Now, in this site, you will see a few items. Now, remember, if you have purchased the MiSphere camera, that would be the green camera. If you have purchased the M Adventure new updated camera, that would be the red camera. And there's also a M Adventure mini camera, which is the little rounded camera. Now in each column you will be able to find the software. So let's just go through this. The first row is basically the Android app. So you have an app for the Android for the MiSphere camera, an app, different app for the M Adventure camera, and a different app for the M Adventure mini camera. If you scroll down, then you can actually access the firmware for the cameras. So currently the M Adventure as well as the MiSphere shares the same firmware, and I would suggest that if you see the word beta, do not use this. Use the latest firmware that is not marked as beta. So the latest one, it's here, which is dated on the 24th of January. Now how to upgrade your firmware on the camera, I'm just going to click on this little hyperlink. Okay, basically what you want to do is to download that file, which is a zip file, and you want to rename the file into this name, which is the madvsysfw.zip. The best thing is to keep the case as is typed here. Copy it into your update directory of your SD card. So if you don't find it, just create an update directory. Usually you'll see it. And if you have any other older files, you want to delete those files in the update directory. So technically it should be only one file. Insert the SD card into the camera. Okay, and this one I'll show you afterwards. With the camera off, that means the camera is off, hold the Wi-Fi button down and then click the power button. So once the LED starts flashing, release the Wi-Fi button. The update will not take too long, maybe a minute or two. Once the update completes, the buzzer will be activated and the camera turn off. So the camera will turn off after the update. So once you turn on the camera, it will restart the camera one time after the update. That's all you need. That's how we update the firmware for the MiSphere camera. And you can find this is also a very useful software, the desktop software, which you can install on your PC to stitch both photos and videos. I found that for the latest firmware of the MiSphere, the M Adventure camera 1.1.0.19 works really well for me, fairly stable, and gives me good stitching. So I'll recommend this particular desktop software. And there are other tools and accessories or utilities that can be used to help you. And yeah, so what we're going to do right now is to basically download the camera firmware. So I'm going to download this. I'm just going to click. So once it's downloaded, I will have to rename this into the correct name and then copy to the update directory of my SD card. So I'm going to just basically copy the correct file with the correct naming into my SD card, and I will basically eject this. Okay. And we can now proceed to update the firmware on the camera. So I have copied the update firmware into the update folder in the SD card. So right now the camera is off and the update file and the SD card is actually in the camera. So I'll show you how to update this. Remember that the two buttons that we need to use will be the corner power button as well as the second button, which is the Wi-Fi button. So it basically asks us to hold down the Wi-Fi button, that's the second button. Just hold it down and then press the power on. And then releases the Wi-Fi button. So you can see that both of the icons, which is a photo and video, flashes together at the same time. That means the firmware update is actually in progress. So we'll let this update. Shouldn't take too long. The firmware file itself is only about like 18 megabytes. So once you hear the buzzer, that means the firmware has been updated and the camera turns off. Now you will need to give it a few seconds. Once it's off, turn it on again, and when you turn it on, it will reboot by itself one time. So let's just turn it on. So the camera has rebooted by itself one time. That means the firmware has been successfully updated. Alright, so this is the camera with the latest firmware already. Now what we want to do right now is to basically have a look at the selfie stick. So I'm just going to turn off the camera. Okay, I'm going to remove the tripod. This is a standard 1/4 inch tray, and this is how you mount the camera onto a standard tripod as well. Now so this is the special selfie stick for MiSphere, and you can see like there are two metal contacts at the bottom. It has to be aligned to the two metal contacts on the selfie stick. So I'm just going to align this like this and then just screw it in. Okay, now with the selfie stick, I remember that we could basically long press the shutter button, which is the selfie stick button, turn on the camera. So I'm just going to hold it down. So there you go, it turns on the camera, and you can long hold or long press the button to change modes. It goes to photo mode, and have a long press again, it goes to video mode. And basically a short click will take a snapshot. There you go, a photo has been taken, and it extends to probably about, I say about like 90 cms. Okay, so this is pretty useful. Now, and if you use this selfie stick together with the 6-axis stabilization with gyroscope and the horizon leveling, the selfie stick actually becomes invisible in your photo and video, regardless of how you hold it. So you could be holding it diagonally or straight, vertically. The selfie stick will still be almost or invisible or almost invisible. Alright, so I'm going to take off the selfie stick now. I'm just going to turn it off, and then we'll try to connect to the app and have a look at the app itself. So I'm going to move this aside. Okay. Now you can basically download the app from the Google Play Store or the App Store or the Apple App Store, or you can actually head on to the developer site and get the latest application for Android, which is the website that I've shown you earlier. So let's basically connect to the app. Now just remember that the default Wi-Fi password for this camera is 12345678. So just that 8 number string to connect to the standard Wi-Fi. Alright, so I'm just going to install the app and come back. Alright, so I've basically got the MiSphere camera app installed on my phone. I'm using a Android 7.1 Samsung phone. So we'll turn on the camera. So once the camera is on, we'll turn on the Wi-Fi button, which is a second button. You can see like there will be a blue light flashing on the top of the camera. So what we're going to do right now is to basically go to the MiSphere app. Once you start the app, we'll hit the camera button here. Alright, so maybe I'll need to connect to Wi-Fi before this. Okay, so I'm going to say add device, turn on Wi-Fi, turn on. Okay, so it says to select this one. So we'll give it a bit of time. It should be the MJXJ. And basically the default password is 12345678. We'll say connect. So once it's connected, the camera will beep one time. Alright. Alright, so I've just covered the lens. I want to just quickly go through the app itself. On the app, I'm going to... And the top part, if I can move it closer, hopefully it focuses alright. You can actually see the battery level. These are the settings. For the photos, auto, basically exposure compensation, ISO, and I believe this is shutter speed, which is auto. Okay, auto is fine. Now if you go to settings, this is basically what I want to show you. A few important settings. So there's a setting for video. If you go down, there's a setting for photos, there's a setting for the camera and the device. Basically information about the device. So let's just very quickly go through. Now the video resolution, the default resolution or native resolution for the sensor is actually 3.5K. So it's 3456 times 1728. If you like to, you can actually turn on 4K. Now the 4K video is actually interpolated, so there is not going to be much difference if you do 3.5K and then use your video editor to basically export to 4K, same quality. So I prefer to leave it in 3.5K to reduce the file size. Okay, and if you like to shoot in a higher frame rate, you can do it in probably about 2K or 2.5K. This is probably 2.5K at 60 frames per second, 2K at 120 frames per second. Okay, so I prefer to leave it at 3.5K, which is 3456 times 1728 at 30 frames per second. White balance exposure compensation, we'll just leave it as default auto. Recording cycle, basically this turns it almost like a car dash cam. Once the card is filled up, it goes around and overwrite the oldest files. So you can see like my current 32 GB Extreme Pro card will let me record 3.5K for about 1.5 hours. Now, photo resolution, this camera actually lets you shoot 23.88 megapixel photos at 6912 times 3456. You have a choice of unstitch or stitch. I actually really prefer the unstitched photo because if I turn on stitching, it actually uses much more battery on the camera, and you know, when you try to shoot too many photos in a sequence, sometimes the stitching doesn't catch up, so there could be issues with the photo. So I rather leave it at 6912 times 3456, which is at 24 megapixels. You have an option to save it into a RAW file without processing as well. So that's the RAW option. Now, white balance, ISO, exposure time, we usually leave this at auto. If you like to change this, you can. Remaining photos, about 3,300. This basically setting for download automatically while checking the file, which means that when you're previewing the file in the app, it will download the photo file. GPS, if you want to geotag your camera, once your GPS is on, you can have it turn on or turn off. And a few other settings, buzzer volume, LED light, and for the first time you probably want to calibrate the camera gyro, okay, which we should do basically in a bit. And basically that's it. And you can see that this is the shutter for photos, this is the shutter for video. There's a timer setting to trigger video or photo recording. There is a intervalometer, basically lets you take photos at a certain number of seconds sequence. And the current firmware and application also has bracketing. It does not do stacking just as yet. It doesn't combine it into an HDR image, not at the moment. Basically, it'll let you take 3 photos, one at basically 0 exposure, and then if you say plus minus 1, it takes at extra 1 level of exposure and minus 1 level of exposure. Okay, so we'll turn that thing off. Bracketing doesn't matter, we'll turn it off. Alright, so basically this is a short intro to the app. You can see like here in the app itself, you can actually sign up into for an account, which you can share your photos and videos online, and from this share you can actually embed it to other websites. You can have a look at the more help. So under the software you can look at the app version, the firmware version, and so on. Alright, so let me just turn this thing off. Okay, so this is a very short unboxing and initial review of the Xiaomi MiSphere 360 camera, and I have been using this for a bit of a time. I will do a follow-up video on the pros and cons, as well as what I really like about the camera. Now, first thing, just to mention, the camera does get a little bit warm or hot, especially when you turn on Wi-Fi. So if you do buy this camera, and you know, if you turn it on for a few minutes on Wi-Fi connection, it actually feels really warm or hot to the touch. Don't worry, it's been designed to do that because this is a metallic shell. The heat it's designed to be dissipated, so the heat comes out very easily. So that's actually a good thing, not a bad thing, rather than to have a plastic body and all the heat stays inside, which may affect the electronics. So metal body, heat comes out really easily, and you feel it. So especially when you're recording long duration of 4K video, or having connection to the app on Wi-Fi. This thing gets warm, so that's standard. Alright, so thanks for joining me in this video. I'll share another video soon about what I like about the camera and the benefits of using this particular camera. Alright, see you then.